Hallucinations, or maybe it's fleeting hallucinations. I don't know. Anyway, uh, just thought I'd pop in again and do another one of these videos where we go over some aspect of the Hero System tabletop role playing game. I'm hoping I sound and come through a little better. I've splurged and bought a new microphone and camera. So hopefully complaints about my audio quality and video quality are maybe a thing of the past. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, today we'll be going over, like I said, one of the aspects of the Hero System tabletop role playing game. I will note that I use the fifth edition of the rules. There is a sixth current edition. For my role playing experiences and everything, I actually prefer the fifth edition over the sixth, but I recommend strongly that you check it out. That you don't just take my word for it. But I want to emphasize, yes, this is fifth edition that I'll be using and going over. And today's topic is going to be on one of the most complicated, misused, badly used things in the system, and that is the variable power pool. I said in the last video that I wanted to start going over the various power frameworks that are in 5th edition. Those include elemental controls, multi-powers, and variable power pools. By request, in some of the comments I got when this hit YouTube, I'm going to go from elemental controls to variable power pools because a lot of people just requested my opinions on them. And I will start and preface this whole video by saying, don't. That's right. In general, I recommend do not use variable power pools. We will discuss this more as I go along. But suffice it to say that they are complicated, that they can be, how do we put it? They can be game breaking. And unless you are really, really confident with the rule set, really know what you're doing, both as a player and a GM, they really should not be used. But I'm going to go through how you use them, and I'll explain as I go along or at the end why I make these comments. So what is a variable power pool? First off and foremost, a variable power pool is a way of setting aside a set of points that can be used for powers that can be changed. In other words, it can be flight at one time and an energy blast the next. Or you can put some points to that and some points to not. So in essence, what you're doing is you're setting up a pool of points, and these points are available for many different powers. Now, the active points of any one power cannot exceed the active points of the variable power pool, or the points put into the variable power pool. So in other words, if you put 70 points into the variable power pool, no power can have over 70 active points. All right? In addition, because you can put limitations to lower the real cost of the power, the total of the real costs cannot exceed the 70 points in the pool. And so you can already see why this starts getting really complicated. You've got an active point limit on the powers, and you've got a total real cost limit on the powers. And all of these things have to be kept track of by both the player and the GM. Because players, being what they are who they are, will often try to get away with things. You got to watch out for it. GMs, these things can be game breaking. How? Well, you've got to remember these points can go into and change powers. So maybe you've set up a scenario where You want it to be tough because it takes flight to get over the chasm or up to the top of the building or something to that effect. And nobody had flight. Oh, ta-da, your variable power pool user does now. And so things that you set up to be challenging can suddenly become a trivial matter of, give me a few minutes while I study my spell books and change the powers in my power pool. These are possibilities. So if you're not prepared and ready to deal with the fact that the player now has a pool of points that they can use to mimic any power that comes up necessary, unless you're prepared for that, don't allow variable power pools. Plain and simple. So that said, let's look at a variable power pool. And to do that, I use a set of software called Hero Designer. I recommend this highly. It's $25 from the Hero System website. And this takes a lot of the crunchiness of this system out of the way. I know I say this every video, but I can't emphasize it enough. Hero Designer is an amazing tool that will take a lot of the problems of making characters and keeping track of things out of the way for a GM and the player. It literally makes it where it's more or less a matter of balancing the points and the player coming up with, or the GM coming up with, and designing the concept behind the character they're trying to create. So that said, we've got our power tab open on our character, and we come to Power Frameworks, and down here at the bottom is Variable Power Pool. Now, first off and right off, we've got to set up our pool of points. So instead of 10, I'm going to go ahead and make it 70. Now, the other part that makes this where as a player you may not want to do it is associated with a variable power pool is a control cost. And that control cost is costs you half of the points that you put into the pool. So my control cost starts out right now with a 70-point pool as 35. So to use a variable power pool of 70 points, I'm already having to use 105 of my character points. So keep that in mind. However, you can bring down the cost of the control pool through the use of limitations. So let's make a mystic character. And so we're going to add a pool modifier, a limitation, and since this is a mystic character, maybe they can only be changed with when you have access to your spell books. So let me see if they don't already have that listed. I should have checked this out beforehand. Only works against reduced pair. Because some of these they have, as you can see, they already have the good set of limitations already worked out. That come up a lot. So I'm not seeing it, unfortunately. So we'll make that I think it's a conditional power that we want. No. So it's limited. So limited power. And it loses roughly a third of its effectiveness, I'm going to say. And that is, powers can only be changed with bulky spell books. So bulky spell books that you don't want to cart around with you. And we'll hit OK now. And you can see that the pool costs 93 points. 70 points for the base pool, which can never be reduced. If you want 70 points in your pool, it's 70 points. Okay? The control cost is the only thing that can be limited. And so as you can see, 70 base plus 35 control cost for 105 active points. And then it loses a third of its effectiveness, which brought down the cost of the control cost, not the base power pool. So the minimum this power pool would cost you is 70 points, or more to the point, 71 points. Because you reduce the control cost, but not the variable power pool base cost. And so, in the end, we're done. This is a variable power pool setup. Pretty darn simple, you'd think. Now, this does allow us to come in here and go, okay, a standard spell is going to be flight. So 10 inches of flight. We'll add 0 endurance. Because he can fly for as long as he needs to. And done. And we can see it fulfills the 70-point limit. It's only 30 active points. And it will say the real cost is 0. Now, that is not true. So you've got to come in and figure out, well, in this case, it'd be 30, the active points, because I didn't put any limitations on it. So 30 point of my 70 points are caught up with this flight, but I still have 40 points that I can go. And let's add an energy blast for a fireball spell. So we'll make it add modifier. We'll make it explosive. And let's see, what else can we add here? What are limitations? Oh, we'll say it needs spell components. We'll do it like another game system here that we won't mention. And these spell components are inobvious but accessible because I keep them hidden in a pouch or something. And so we'll kick. We're done with that, so we'll kick up the dice now. We'll keep it down below 40 active points, so it's a 5d6 attack. And you see, I can keep track of some standard spells that I want the character to have access to. But as of now, how many points did I spend there? Real points. Well, it's plus a half advantage, but minus a half. So that's easy to keep track of in your head. That's just the real cost, or the active point cost again. So, or it tells me right there, 25 points. So I've now used 55 points out of my 70 for powers, and both of them are below the 70 active point limit, and so I can keep adding these things together. But the bottom line is I can keep track of a set of standard spells that the power pool will often be used for underneath the variable power pool. And that's why there's 0 cost, because I don't have to pay more points for them. They're underneath the variable power pool. So when do things become crazy? Well, I can come in here and let's edit this. There is a type of power pool, so a pool modifier called Cosmic. And I can add that to my power pool. And you can see it's a +2 advantage. So it's going to triple the control cost. Not the base power pool cost, the control cost. Just got tripled by adding that. And we'll probably take off the limited power because it doesn't make sense, and I'll explain why in a second, to have it as a cosmic pool and then limit it to only with bulky spell books. Because and you can see now that 70-point power pool now costs 175 points. What the cosmic does is it makes the powers changeable as a 0-phase action. So at will, the player of this character can now change the powers in the power pool at will for a 0 phase action. So they can change it and attack immediately on the same phase. If you don't understand why that's broken, my statement is do not allow variable power pools. This is broken. This is instantly, whenever they need it, the moment they need it, the player has the power. All right? This is for you to use comic book characters. This is the Silver Surfer. This is Green Lantern. Okay? Whatever the player needs, they've got a power for it now. And that is a problem. If you're not prepared for it as a GM, this is a problem. If you're prepared for it, by all means, allow it. Don't take my word as gospel. But keep in mind, yes, these things can break your game. Not only the fact can they break your game because of that, but they're therefore then prone to allowing cheating, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Because I'm pretty good at the math. I can run a lot of the math, the crunchiness of this system in my head because of years of practice. So on the fly, I can come up with a power that'll fit into this power pool. That said, I make mistakes. And so I could end up with more points and powers than the power pool actually allows. Or I might have forgotten something and a power has more active points than it should have, than the 70 in this case that it should have. So again, this may sound confusing. It's confusing. And it can break your game. At the same time, if a player is wanting a Doctor Strange or a Green Lantern or a Silver Surfer, this may be the best option for a fantasy hero setting where you're using this system to present wizards and all that. A wizard mage character may want a variable power pool. The best way to set it up and the way you decide to set up magic in your game may be to set up a variable power pool of, say, 30 points. Only changeable only with spell books. Changing powers takes 1 hour. So it takes an hour of sitting down with the spell books for the wizard to change the powers in his power pool. This is now not so broken, but you may still want to develop a set of base spells. These are things that the character can do, so that you're not trying to do it on the fly, because that is also the other point where it starts becoming broken, is when you try to do it off the top of your head. So again, we're back to my recommendation. This is the simplest framework to put together mechanically, but it is absolutely the most broken of the three frameworks as far as abuse, as far as doing things you're not expecting or that you didn't want. And so some people go, well, just don't allow that power at this time. How do you justifying that when it's a matter of, they need a bridge across the chasm, so why can't they just make up a flight power? And one answer might be they don't have it in a flight spell in their spell books. You can do that. I mean, we can simulate, like I said, another game system where unless the players have come across that spell in somebody else's spell books or on a scroll or something like this, now maybe you've got a justification for saying, no, you can't have flight. And then, like I said, it's up to the player to keep track of a list of spells they have in their book. So there's ways around the brokenness of this type of power framework, but it's definitely something that you have to take into account, that you have to keep in mind. Because again, it can really unbalance things. And I say that, and I'm contemplating a character currently that I will base them around a variable power pool, and it will be the first time I have made such a character in quite some times, and I expect fully to sit down with the game master, who in this case is Wondergoon in our chat, and work out a standard base set of powers that I can switch out into the pool. Basically, because I don't want to break their game. You know, I want to be a good player. I want to be a player that allows there to be fun to be had by my fellow players. I want the GM to have fun. Because let me tell you, you want to see what leads to burnout amongst the GM? Let the GM not have fun. So as a GM, if you think this power framework is going to break your game, or that you're going to be pulling your hair out trying to run referee over what the player is doing with it, you're probably better off just telling them, look, I'd really prefer you use something like a multi-power. And multi-powers will be my next stream, by the way. So stay tuned for that. But we're not going to do it today. So in the end, I'm going to make this a short stream and basically ask if there are any questions in the chat, which I don't know that I have any viewers beyond Wondergoon. But if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. If not, I'm going to turn the stream off and wait for comments in the YouTube channel for questions. And so pretty simple mechanistically, but they can break your game. So questions, comments, dirty looks. I'll wait a few seconds. Do 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 do. I shouldn't do that probably. One, because I don't know how many people would recognize that little ditty, and two, because it's a ditty and might get me an incoming. No matter how badly I do it. Anyway, all right. I think I've waited long enough. If there are no questions, I'm going to call this one a stream and let it go. But as you can see, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Should VPPs be themed? They can be. They do not have to be. By that, do they all have to have a common special effect or something? That's one of the things that can be broken about them is no. For the bottom line is all the powers do not have to be fire-based, unless that's something the DM wants to be done. Now, they're probably going to have some kind of basic special effect similarity. They're all going to be a gadget pool, so you've got to come up with some type of machine or device that enacts the power. Or they're all going to be magic-based, so that this is a wizard casting spells. But basically, they don't have to. I can use the variable power pool and simulate the power by making it a device 1 minute, and then make another power that's wiggle my fingers and say the right words. So I will go on record as recommending that no, you make people have a basic thread that runs through it. Is it spells or is it devices? Is it magic items? Is it, make something about this variable, the powers in this pool, that they are a common thread. This should not be a problem. If your player or you, have thought through why you're wanting a variable power pool, chances are you've probably worked out a common thread that all the powers are going to have. But the answer is does it have to be? No. Should it be? Probably. Yeah. Good question. Thank you. So, yeah, like my mystic character, it will be spells. I won't be having him have the time-stopping amulet that he can use. Again, trying to avoid some name dropping and getting a copyright strike. I think we can use the names of characters, but the items or devices that they use can probably get me in trouble. So anything else? Any other questions or comments? Are the rules about having powers outside the pool that affect the pool powers in the pool? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked it because I forgot all about that. Like with all of the power frameworks, you should never allow powers that are linked between the frameworks or powers outside the framework linking to a power in the framework. By this, I mean you have an energy blast that's in the framework, but linked to it is this drain on body that's outside of the power framework. I can get around your damage class limits that way, Mr. GM. No, you can't. Because you can't link a power, have one power go off when another is used into the framework. You cannot have two powers within the framework that are linked together that go off at the same time. These are no-nos. If you want that effect, then what you have to do is build a compound power. Hence why there is this nice little thing here called compound power. What this allows you to do is build a power that is two powers that go off at the same time. Now, isn't that just the same thing? No, because linked is a limitation on the power. A compound, and that can reduce the real cost. A compound power is still limited to the total of all the powers in the compound power still are limited to 70 active points in the case of the power pool I have here. But they're also within the 70 point real cost limit. So if you want to link two powers, you have to make them the same slot by using compound power. And again, people go, okay, so what? Isn't that the same thing? No, trust me. And I guess I'll have to do an episode where I go over compound power and why it's different than just linking. That said, the powers within, one of the powers within the compound power can be linked to the base power of the compound. But it really making people use a compound power instead of linking slots really does keep it from being game breaking, because when you link slots outside of the power framework or within the power framework, let's just say you can get by that active point limit because each power is still within the active points of the pool. Yeah, but the total is now above it. Okay? That can be done. That is a thing. And so in the case of my drain that I mentioned, let's say the campaign limit is 70 active points. So I put all of my points into a 14d6 energy blast within the variable power pool. I am now at the damage class limit for the campaign. But I'm going to link this drain versus stun. Let's make it no killing of the character. This drain versus stun, that's a 4d6 drain outside of it, and I'm going to link it to that slot in the variable power pool. Well, now your damage class is, 40 would be 8 plus the 14 for the slot. So that's now a 22 damage classes that is hitting the target. No. Wrong answer. Whereas if it was made in a compound power, it would lower that limit, that linking of the drain to the energy blast. The total would still have to be under 70 active points. It would still have to be under the campaign limit. Okay? It just affects the real cost that goes into that slot. Okay? I hope that made sense. It's awful. I guess I can show it. If I do it as a compound power, I come in here and I add an energy blast. There it is. And I have to say the total for this compound power has to stay below 70 active points. So let's say I'm going to put 50 points into the energy blast. Okay? And now I'm going to add, I can add 20 points as a drain. Is that drain? Yep, that's drain. So it's a 2d6 drain. And so my compound power is still limited by the 70 active points total. So my damage class that's hitting my target is still 14. Okay? Whereas if I don't show again, if I have a power outside, I can sit here and get by you going, well, my drain here is still, let me edit it and put on linked. See, linked is a limitation. Oh, done. Okay. So now my drain is 70 active points under the campaign limit. And now I go in and I put in a 14-6 energy blast that it's linked to, which is under the campaign limit. But now I can, because this drain is linked to that energy blast slot in the variable power pool, I can, both of them go off at the same time. And all of a sudden now it's not a 14 damage classes that the target is receiving, it's 28. That's broken. That's beyond the campaign limits. But you will have a player try to say, well, no, both slots are underneath the campaign limits. They're just linked, thinking that that's a good argument. No, it really isn't. That's a good way to have a broken game. So never should slots within a multi-power, between any of the 3 power frameworks, slots between them should not be linked. Slots should not be able to be linked to from power outside of the framework, nor should multiple frameworks, because you can have an elemental control and a multi-power and a variable power pool. And they should not be, powers in one should not be able to be linked to powers in another. Okay? That's, as Wondergood said, doing this type of thing is a good way of getting kicked out of a game. Because you can sit there and go, well, the rules allow for it all you want. But you just made a power that will level any character, any NPC, reasonable NPC the GM throws at you. Because, by that reckoning, you could link a multi-power slot to a variable power pool and link an elemental control slot to both of them. And all of a sudden, no one of the powers is over the limits. Yeah, but the agglomerated whole took those limits, wadded them up, lit them on fire. So don't allow that. If they want that type of thing, make them use a compound power. Period. End of statement. And like I said, after I do the multi-power video, hopefully next week, hopefully I'll remember, I'll do something on compound powers the next time, the time after that. Because now that it's been brought up, compound powers need something about them on there too. So anyway, any more questions? Oh, and don't be afraid to kick an unruly player who's trying to break your game out. Even if, they're going, well, it's not against the rules. The rule set allows for you to make this power. The rule set may allow for it, but that doesn't mean I have to allow it. And no, I don't need to give you a justification for why I'm not allowing it. Well, that's being arbitrary. Yes, that's part of the game master's job, is to arbitrate, to arbite the system. So you are well with GMs. You are well within your rights of saying, no, I'm not allowing that, even if the rules allow for it. You don't want to deal with this variable power pool business, don't allow them. Even when the player comes to you and goes, but the rules say I can do, I say you can't. So, we're back to where I started out saying, if you're not comfortable with the rules as a whole, don't allow these in your game. Seriously. If you don't trust the player, don't allow a variable power pool. All right. I really do think that's about it. I'm going to take my voice is going out because I helped a player earlier today make a character. And I was talking with him for 2.5 hours. So another half hour now of running my mouth has made me really parched. Wondergoon is being an amazing friend and has put up the link for the store for getting Hero Designer. Please look into that, because I hope you watch these videos and you're interested in the system. I highly recommend the system. It is so malleable, so able to be used for any type of genre or setting you can come up with. Really and truthfully, it is an amazing system. But the math can really get in the way. And Hero Designer goes a long way to getting that out of the way. Like I said, I can do a lot of the math in my head or with a calculator and a piece of paper, and I still use Hero Designer as a default go-to. So definitely check into getting Heroes. Definitely check into the Hero system. Definitely check into getting Hero Designer if you are interested. And try to find a group. If you're new to the system, try to find a group of experienced players in GM and join in. I would say join in ours, but we meet only via Discord, and we really don't have the slots open at the moment. Otherwise, I'd say join us. So anyway, I think that'll do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have some questions, feel free to look me up on YouTube under Kesdrith again and ask questions in the comments. But anyway, until next time, y'all have a great day.